Now, a lot of times when I work with different companies and I'm doing a little more of a compliance audit on their whole portfolio. So some of the big no-nos that I've come across and I wanted to share with, because it can hurt you if you are not set up properly. And let me go here and go through this so you understand. Now, what's the difference between a physical location, meaning commercial, if you're in a commercial location, versus virtual? A lot of companies like Regus and there's a thousand of them out in the industry right now. But this is where you're just buying a monthly subscription for like a mailbox or an address. A lot of lenders do understand the difference between them, and also the difference between home. So if you work out of your home versus being in a virtual office with just an address, or if you actually have a physical location that somebody can walk into and do a meet and greet. What I found is that 9 times out of 10, if you have a physical location, it does show a lot more credibility. I think it's a great word to use. Credibility for the bank to lend to you. A lot of times when this is more or less a 50-50 scenario. A lot of banks that I work with, they want to do a site visit. So they're going to come to your office, they want to sit down with you, they want to have that relationship, find out what you're trying to accomplish, see the organization. So if you have a virtual office and they do a site visit, what are you going to do? You're going to rent the office for a day and put this facade? It's just part of that compliance that can get you denied if you don't do it correctly. Being in a home is, I was recently working with his doctor, and he was a radiologist. And a friend of mine was actually in the radiology business, and he actually was able to work at home. So the hospital sent him the x-rays, he does his analysis, does his little computer stuff, sends it back via email or through the system that they used. So not needed the hospital doesn't need them to be in the actual physical location. However, when we submitted him to, I believe it was Bank of America, the bank didn't want to extend him at least the $250,000 line of credit because he didn't want to move to another location. He wanted to stay in his home. So it can affect you if you have a home address. I'm not saying that you're going to get denied if you're at home. However, it is much better if you can move to a physical location. And there's a lot of cheap properties or rental or leases that you can get into if needed. Now, company phone number. No cell phones, please. So if you're going to be operating a business, there is a lot of different companies out there that you can even just get a virtual number. I think one that I found was called Call8.com, RingCentral. There's 100 of these different companies out there, and as little as, I think Call8's even at $2 for a number, call forwarded, you pay by the minute. So just have a particular commercial number, not your cell phone or your home phone, because it does make a difference. When they reverse engineer it, they find it can hurt the perception of the business that you have. Now, a lot of companies with local listings. What do I mean by local listings? If somebody does a reverse lookup on you, 411, Yellow Pages, and you're not listed, the whole concept is that, if I'm a business and I'm promoting my company, I want to be able to be as found in many different places as possible. I've had banks ask me for my clients, does this person have any other social presence? Does he have a website? Does he have, there's actually one thing I forgot to put in there, it's a website. So, there you go, website's added. So, if you're in a 401 pages, everything usually links to your website, right? So a bank is going to want to know and understand what your company does. And if you do have a presence, it's not required 100% of the time, but it always helps when you submit. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is foreign filing. So what is a foreign filing? So there is a lot of companies out there that say, incorporate in Wyoming or incorporate in Delaware, Montana, Nevada. There's a whole bunch of these companies, and even the age corporations where you're able to buy, just say a purchase or a business acquisition, for so to speak. But they all have different locations for where you're purchasing it. But now, usually when you when you work with a company and you want to demonstrate and do business in a particular state, you want to foreign file in that company. So for example, if you're in Delaware, and because it has a lot of tax benefits, or if you're looking to go public, it's a great state to incorporate. But I live in California, or I live in Florida, or I'm doing business in one of those states, you want to be able to foreign file in that state that you're transacting. Or let's just say I'm a virtual company and I'm expanding, and I have a company in California and in Florida, and we have 2 locations. Well, you need to do a foreign filing in order to legally be working in that particular state. So why is that important? Because a lot of, especially the major banks, that if I work with community banks that only lend in their footprint, so if I'm in Florida and there's a Southeast Asia region that I'm able to have access to those banks, I need to be able to have a company registered before I can work with that particular bank. There's some banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, that are nationwide, and they have a presence in a lot of different areas. But if some of these smaller banks don't, and you need to be in their state or close to the vicinity of one of their branches in order to work with them. So it can be a very powerful tool, but just to be compliant and do business in that particular state.